Welcome to Off the Record News. I'm your host, Diana Longry. Thank you for tuning in. This program is brought to you live from the SCC studios out of White Bear Lake. Through a cooperative agreement, this program is also simultaneously broadcast to those studios out of the Roseville viewing area, the CTV studios. As a result of this cooperative effort, this program reaches out to and serves approximately 28 communities in the Northeast metropolitan area. Now, of course, for those of you who have watched on a regular basis for the past 8 years, you know that Wednesday nights is our live broadcast. And of course, we encourage you to call in with any questions or comments that you may have either for myself or my guest this evening, because that, of course, is part of the great opportunity here with Public Access TV, is that you too can be part of the conversation. Now, of course, we do rebroadcast at other times as well. So, of course, if you're watching this program on a date other than October 13th, well, please don't call in because we won't be here. And those of you who are watching us in the St. Paul area on Monday evenings, well, we welcome you on Monday evenings and thank you for tuning into our program. And now, of course, tonight we're going to be talking about a hot topic that's going on in Maplewood. However, this has been a hot topic in many communities throughout the metropolitan area. So it isn't just Maplewood specific. It's an issue that's been talked about in Falcon Heights probably about 5 years ago. And about that time, we actually had some haulers who were on the program at that time talking about the impact that it would have upon the city of Falcon Heights. Well, of course, everything seems to go around, comes around. And here we are again, now talking about choice of trash haulers, and this time in Maplewood. So with that, I'd like to welcome my guests who are here with me this evening. So thank you, both of you, for being here. Now, first of all, I'll let you both introduce yourself to our viewers, and I'll start with you first, Mark. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mark Stoltman. I'm the General Manager of Randy's Environmental Services, and I'm the Chapter Chairman of the Minnesota Chapter of the National Solid Waste Management Association.
Okay, and Doug?
Thank you, Diana. We really appreciate your taking the time to have us visit on the program here. My name is Doug Carnival. I'm an attorney in Minneapolis, live in St. Paul, and I represent the National Solid Waste Management Association, the Minnesota chapter that Mark is the chairman of, and I represent them at the cities and the counties as well as at the state legislature.
Okay, well, very good. Well, I know that our viewers may have heard on some of the previous programming either last week or the week before about the fact that Maplewood had a special council meeting, and it was especially called just for the issue of allowing citizens to come up before the council and to talk about how they felt about this issue in Maplewood. But before we really start talking too much about that, let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit about, well, about the organization and a little bit about this issue and give our viewers a little bit of the foundation so that then from there, then we can talk about citizen involvement in this issue. Who would like to go first?
Mark, why don't you talk a little bit about the organization, and then I'll chat a little bit about where we've been.
Okay.
Absolutely. The National Solid Waste Management Association is an organization that allows haulers, large and small, to get together in the form of an attorney or a lobbyist, as it so is, in order to have discussions about common interests without the fear of collusion or antitrust issues. It is something that is, the association itself has representation in every state. We have a Washington office that helps us with national issues, and we participate in discussions on every front of the solid waste industry.
Now, I think that I was sort of looking at one of the blog sites on the internet where they seem to be implying that your association was really only catering to the big haulers and forget about the little haulers. Why don't you address that issue?
Well, we actually do have larger haulers involved in our organization, and we have smaller haulers like our company and many others that are independently owned. The company, as an example, I work for is a family-owned business. It's been in business now about 30 years, and it allows us all, big and small, to talk about the issues that that we need to have discussion on in order to stay abreast of governmental issues, as an example, the subject we're talking about
Right,
tonight.
because really, no matter if you're the small company or the big company, you all have to comply with the same regulations,
Absolutely.
don't you?
We sure do.
So with that lead-in, we'll just turn it over to the attorney talking about regulations.
Thank you, Diana. As Mark said, it's very important for this industry to have a presence not only at the state capitol, but also at the local jurisdictions as well, because so many things happen that can affect the industry that it's important for us to be engaged. Understand that this issue, this government managed, as we call it, organized collection issue, is really one that deals with mostly the citizens. This is not necessarily us, as some have implied, trying to protect the markets of the big guys. It's not the case at all. We have discovered, having dealt with this issue in many, many communities around the state, I think the number is about 20 now, and in every one of those cases, the citizens have really convinced the city councils and the county boards that their citizens are not interested in seeing the government get in the business of managing waste when decisions can be made by the citizens better for themselves than having the government do it. Let me just, you mentioned having been in a number of other communities, let me just tick off a few of those 20 in the metro area. Arden Hills, Coon Rapids, Falcon Heights, Grant Township, Lauderdale, Prior Lake, Stillwater Township, and St. Anthony have all gone through this same consideration, and in each case the citizens have overwhelmingly said we don't want the government to do this. We want to make our own choice. This is something that's a right that we think we have. It's a free enterprise system in this country. We want to be able to pick who hauls our waste. We want to be able to negotiate the price. We want to decide who services best and see people compete for that business door to door. As an interesting story, we were in the city of Falcon Heights, as you mentioned, and probably the most compelling testimony of all was by the former mayor, whose testimony was probably the shortest of anybody at the public hearing, and he said, I'm opposed to this because right now all I have to do is make 2 phone calls if I don't like my garbage service. One 15-second phone call to the guy who's hauling now, whether it's a big guy or a little guy, and 15 seconds on the second phone call to someone who to say, come and haul my service, but take my garbage.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that in Falcon Heights, of course, that you know, a past mayor got up and spoke in support of having choice of haulers by the citizens to pick and choose their own haulers. Well, of course, at the public hearing that was in Maplewood, 2 former mayors spoke up in support of allowing citizens to have their own choice. And I think, you know, that says a lot when you've got former elected officials who are familiar with their community and with citizens' ideas as well.
Exactly. I mean, you're absolutely right. That's the best testimony from any community, is someone who has sat in the shoes of city councils and mayors and have decided, much like you have, and said, I know what the people think, and the people think this is a decision that's best left with them rather than made on their behalf. And just as an example, in Maplewood, we had this is 1,000 postcards that were sent back before the special city council meeting last week. I now understand there's 1,600 cards, which represents 1,600 households, all but 25 of which have said that they prefer the system to be the way it is, with citizens making their own decisions.
Right.
So
right.
Very
Exactly.
compelling, and that's essentially, Diane, that's exactly what we've seen in every community of the 20 that we've dealt with this
Right.
issue.
Well,
Citizens don't want to do this.
Exactly. And you know, and one of the things too that I think is interesting about the survey cards in Maplewood that came back to the city to let them know sort of their feeling on this in a written form was last year in 2009, when the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission in Maplewood first started talking about this issue, about bringing it back up again in Maplewood. That was actually then on one of the issues that certainly I knew was on the forefront that was going to be facing citizens certainly in 2010 or 2011, and so it was actually part of the survey that I put together, and that survey was actually even published in our Maplewood monthly news letter that we have that goes out monthly. And And many of those cards went out to folks who are active in the community, or some of us went door to door and actually solicited information just from random people. And then people sent in information as a result of the survey that was published.
And the results of that survey, I understand, were 70% of
Pretty
the
close.
people who
That's
responded,
right.
69 if I
Yeah,
recall.
that's right. Pretty close, yes.
Said
yes.
that they prefer the system the way it is,
Yeah.
and let them decide themselves.
Yeah, and one of the things too, and I think, Mark, you can jump in on this as well, is that I have heard citizens say that they like to be able to have that one-on-one relationship with their hauler, that they feel that, you know, they have that contract with that hauler, they have the relationship, and that they're really, that's one of the issues, is that it's not necessarily price. It's about preserving a relationship. Like it was said, you just pick up the phone and you got one person to call, rather than having to complain to the whole council and hope that they listen to you.
Right.
Absolutely. This is a, you know, this industry is a tight-knit type situation, relationship with the customer, much like you have with your hairstylist or your barber. It's something that you, over the course of time, recognize that the company itself, large or small, works tirelessly to develop a program that allows you a menu of choices that allows you to custom tailor your needs to your hauling.
Mm-hmm.
And in our company, as an example, I can tell you for a fact that if I talked to one of my drivers and I said, hey, you know, we got a call from such and such a person, he'd tell me the color of the house, the color of the car. You know, I was there. They had the dog. The dog was out. Things were good. I mean, these people get to know their customer.
Right.
The customers get to know them. Some of them come out to the truck and talk to people. And so not only do you have that dynamic going, but you have the reality that we work very, very hard to service that customer on a one-on-one basis where they feel like their needs are met.
Right. Well, you got a motivation. I mean, your motivation is to keep your customer, keep them happy, because I think anybody who's in the business of having customers and clients, you know that it's a whole lot easier to keep the ones you have happy than to have them go by the wayside and then have to find new ones to replace them. I think it's like 4 or 5 times as much work and effort to try to replace a customer as to keep them happy.
Absolutely. And you know, the customers themselves, word of mouth is the most powerful form of advertising, good or bad. And most of the companies don't do a tremendous amount of advertising. They rely on the service they give, the good service, the hard work, in order to get the house next door, the person that moves into the neighborhood and asks, gee, who should we use? So it is something that we work hard at.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Just as an addition to that, Diana, very interesting thing that happened in Olmsted County, who looked at this 4, 5, 6 years ago. The number of people who, again, showed up at the county board meeting, much like in Maplewood when it was an overflow crowd, one of the citizens came out of the audience, unbeknownst to us, and spoke to the county board saying, I want you to know, my mother died about 6 months ago. She was very sick for many years, and I want you to know that the hauler we've had for the last 20 years knew that, came up to the house, knocked on the door, got the garbage out of the house, brought it to the hauling vehicle, and brought it back in and checked on her every week. And I mean, the guy almost broke down. I mean, it was, again, absolutely his own personal story, and he said, I don't want that customer relationship broken. I want to be able to decide, I don't want you, Olmsted County, to send me somebody else who I don't really know. So it's a really an amazing relationship that haulers have developed with their citizens, and they're very passionate about it. You don't get 1,600 households send in cards. In Ramsey and Washington County, 14,000 cards came in to tell those county officials, please leave things alone. Frankly, in most cases, it's a solution in search of a problem. People can't really articulate effectively what it is they're trying to solve. Might want to try and save a few bucks. It turns out that's not necessarily true. People want to make their own decisions for a few bucks. So they talk about road wear and tear. as it turns out, that's not really a substantial issue, and no one's ever proven, as I mentioned at the City Council, that anybody can save 6 months, 6 years, or 6 days.
Well, and I would, myself personally, I have actually challenged that particular assumption that it has an impact on the wear and tear of